Okay, hi, this is Tahir Benjaloun's The Sand Child. This is Chapter 2, The Thursday Gate. Friends of the good know that we have met through the secrecy of the world in a circular street, perhaps upon a ship plying a course unknown to me. This story has something of the night. It is obscure and yet rich in images. It should end with a feeble, gentle light. When we reach dawn, we shall be delivered. We shall have aged by a night, a long, heavy night, a half century, a few white pages scattered in the white marble courtyard of our house of memories. Some of you will be tempted to dwell in that new residence, or at least to occupy a small part of it. Suited to the dimensions of your body. I know that the temptation to forget will be great. Oblivion is a spring of pure water that must on no account be approached, however thirsty you may feel. For this story is also a desert. You will have to walk barefoot on the hot sand, walk and keep silent, believing in the oasis that shimmers on the horizon and never ceases to move toward the sky. Walk and not turn around, lest you be taken with vertigo. Our steps invent the path as we proceed. Behind us they leave no trace, only the void. So we shall always look ahead and trust our feet. They will take us as far as our minds will believe this story. Now you know that neither doubt nor irony will have a place in this journey. Once we arrive at the seventh gate, we may truly be people of the good. It is an adventure. Is it an adventure or an ordeal? I would say it is both. Let those who are setting out with me raise their right hands for the pact of fidelity. The others may go off to other stories, other storytellers. I do not tell stories simply to pass the time. My stories come to me, inhabit me, and transform me. I need to get them out of my body in order to make room for new stories. I need you. I make you part of my undertaking. I carry you on my back and on the ship. Each stop will be used for silence and reflection. No prayers, but an immense faith. Today, we take the path to the first gate, the Thursday Gate. Why do we begin with that gate, and why is it so called? Thursday is the fifth day of the week, the day of exchange. Some say that it is market day, the day when the mountain people and the peasants of the plains come to the city and set up their stalls at the foot of that gate to sell the week's produce. That may be true, but it is mere coincidence. Never mind. The gate that you perceive in the distance is majestic. It is magnificent. Its wood was carved by 55 craftsmen, and you will see on it over 500 different motifs. That heavy, beautiful gate is the book's point of entry, the birth of our hero one Thursday morning. He arrived a few days late. His mother was ready on Monday, but she managed to keep him inside her until Thursday, for she knew that on that day only male children are born. Let us call him Ahmed, a common name. Ahmed was born on a sunny day. His father claims that the sky was overcast and that Ahmed brought the light to the sky. So be it. He arrived after a long wait. The father had no luck. He was convinced that some distant heavy curse weighed on his life. Out of 7 births, he had 7 daughters. The house was occupied by 10 women. The 7 daughters, the mother, Aunt Aisha, and Malika, the old servant woman. The curse was spread over time. The father thought that 1 daughter would have been enough. 7 was too many. Tragic, even. How often he remembered the story of the Arabs before the advent of Islam who buried their daughters alive. Since he could not get rid of them, he treated them not with hate, but with indifference. He lived in the house as if he had no progeny. He did everything he could to forget them, to keep them out of sight. For example, he never called them by name. The mother and aunt looked after them. He withdrew into himself and sometimes wept in silence. He said that his face was inhabited by shame, that his body was possessed by an accursed seed, and that he regarded himself as a sterile husband or as a bachelor. He did not remember ever having laid his hand on the face of one of his daughters. Between him and them there was a wall. There was no joy in his life. He could no longer bear the mockery of his two brothers, who arrived at the house at each birth with a caftan and earrings as gifts, smiling contemptuously, as if they had already won a bet, as if it was they who had manipulated the curse. They rejoiced publicly and speculated about the inheritance. You are not unaware, my friends and accomplices, that our religion is pitiless for a man who has no heirs. It dispossesses him in favor of his brothers, while the daughters receive only 1/3 of the inheritance. So the brothers awaited the death of the eldest to divide between them a large part of his fortune. The father did all he could to change his destiny. He consulted physicians, fakirs, charlatans, quacks from every region of the country. He even took his wife to a marabout tomb and had her stay there for 7 days and 7 nights on a diet of dry bread and water. She sprinkled herself with she-camel's urine and scattered the ashes of 17 kinds of incense on the sea. She wore amulets and sacred texts while traveling to Mecca. She swallowed rare herbs imported from India and the Yemen. She drank a salty, bitter liquid prepared by an old witch. She suffered fevers, unbearable attacks of nausea, headaches. Her body aged. Her face became lined. She grew thin and often fainted. Her life was a hell, and her husband, always discontent, his pride wounded, his honor lost, treated her roughly, and held her responsible for the misfortune that had befallen them. One day he struck her because she had refused to subject herself to a last desperate ordeal, letting a dead man's hand pass over her naked belly from top to bottom and using it as a spoon to eat couscous. In the end, she agreed to undergo this ordeal. I don't have to tell you, my companions, the poor woman fainted and fell with all her weight on the dead man's cold body. They had chosen a poor family, neighbors who had just lost their grandfather, a blind and toothless man. To recompense them, the husband gave them a small sum of money. The wife was ready to make any sacrifice and was filled with wild hopes each time she became pregnant. But at each birth her joy turned to despair. She, too, began to lose interest in her daughters. She resented their presence, hated herself, and struck her belly to punish herself. The husband copulated with her on certain nights chosen by the witch, all to no avail. Each birth was received, as you can imagine, with cries of anger, tears of powerlessness. Each akika was a silent, cold ceremony. Instead of slitting the throat of an ox, or at least of a calf, the man bought a thin goat and poured its blood in the direction of Mecca quickly, muttering the name between his teeth so that no one would hear it, then disappeared, not returning to the house for days. The 7 akikas were all more or less skimped, but for the 8th he spent months preparing, in the minutest detail. He no longer believed in the quacks. The physicians could do nothing about what was written in heaven. The witches exploited him. The fakirs and marabouts remained silent. It was then, when all the doors were shut, that he made his decision to defy fate. He had a dream. Everything was in its place in the house. He was lying in bed, and death paid him a visit. With the graceful face of a youth, it leaned over him and kissed him on the forehead. The youth was disturbingly beautiful. His face changed. Sometimes it was that of the young man who had just appeared, sometimes that of a young woman, fair and evanescent. He no longer knew who was kissing him, but what he was sure of was that Death was bending over him, despite its disguise of youth and life. In the morning he forgot the idea of death and remembered only the image of the youth. He spoke of it to nobody, allowing the idea that was to transform his life and that of his whole family to mature slowly inside of him. What idea, you may ask? Well, if you will allow me, I shall now retire to rest and tell you tomorrow the brilliant idea that this man on the edge of despair had a few weeks before the birth of our hero. Friends and companions of the good, come tomorrow with bread and dates. The day will be long, and we will have to pass through very narrow paths. As you will have observed, our caravan has made some progress on the route to the first gate. I see that everyone has brought provisions for the journey. Last night I was pursued and persecuted by ghosts. I went out and met in the street, but no one but drunkards and bandits. They wanted to take all I had, but found nothing on me. At dawn I went home, then slept until noon. That is why I am late, but I see anxiety in your eyes. You do not know where I am leading you. Fear not, I do not know either. And will that unsatisfied curiosity I read on your faces be answered one day? You have chosen to listen to me, so follow me to the end. The end of what? Circular streets have no end. His idea was a simple one, but difficult to realize, to maintain in all its strength. The child to be born was to be a male, even if it was a girl. That was his decision, his unshakable determination. One evening he summoned his pregnant wife, and said to her in a firm, solemn voice, "Until now we have done nothing with our lives but wait stupidly arguing with fate. Our bad luck is not our fault. You are a good woman, a submissive, obedient wife. But after you had your 7th daughter, I realized that you carry some infirmity within you. Your belly cannot conceive a male child. It is made in such a way that it will produce only females. I do not hold this against you. I am a good man. I shall not cast you off and take a second wife. I, too, bitterly resent that inhospitable womb. It will be cured, its habit reversed. I have issued it a challenge. It will give me a boy. My honor will at last be restored. The color will return to my cheeks, that of a man, a father who may die in peace, keeping his rapacious brothers from looting his fortune and leaving you in need. I have been patient with you. We have been all over the country to try to cure you. Even when I was angry, I restrained myself from being violent. Of course, you may reproach me with lacking tenderness toward your daughters. They are yours. I have given them my name, but I cannot give them my affection, because I never wanted them. They arrived by mistake in place of the boy I have yearned for. You will understand why I no longer see them or concern myself with their fate. They have grown up with you. They have no father. I have decided that the 8th birth will be marked by a festival, the greatest of ceremonies, a celebration of joy that will last for 7 days and 7 nights. You will be a mother, a true mother. You will be a princess, for you will have brought to birth a boy. The child you shall bring into the world will be male. It will be a man. It will be named Ahmed, even if it is a girl. I have arranged everything. Lala Radihia, the old midwife, will be sent for. She will last only another year or 2, and anyway I shall give her enough money so she will keep the secret. I have already talked to her about it, and she said that this idea had occurred to her too. We soon came to an arrangement. You, of course, will be the well and tomb of this secret. Your happiness and even your life will depend on it. The child will be welcomed as a man who will illuminate this sad house with his presence. He will be brought up according to the tradition reserved for males, and of course he will govern and protect you after my death. Ahmed will rule over this household of women when I am gone. We shall now seal a pact of secrecy. Give me your right hand, let our fingers intertwine, and let us bear these 2 clasped hands to our mouths, then to our foreheads. Now let us swear fidelity unto death. Let us perform our ablutions. We shall pray, and swear our pact on the open Koran. And so the pact was sealed. The woman had to acquiesce. She obeyed her husband as usual, but this time felt involved in a common action. At last she had her husband's confidence. Her life would have a meaning. The great day, the day of the birth, arrived. The woman still entertained some hope. Perhaps destiny would at last give her true joy and make deceit unnecessary. Alas, destiny was obstinate. Lala Radhia had been at the house since Monday. She prepared for this birth with great care. She knew that it would be exceptional and perhaps the last of her long career. The daughters did not understand why there was so much bustle and excitement. Lala Radhia whispered to them that the child was about to be born would be a male. Her intuition had never betrayed her, she said. Such things were beyond the powers of reason. She felt from the way the child moved in its mother's belly that it could only be a boy. It kicked with a brutality that could only be that of a male. The daughters were perplexed. Such a birth would utterly transform their family. They looked at one another and said not a word. In any case, there was nothing exciting about their lives. Perhaps a brother might come to love them. The rumor was already running through the district that the rest of the family, Haji Ahmed, was to have a boy. Now, my friends, time is running out. We are no longer spectators. We, too, have embarked on a story that may well bury us all in the same cemetery, for the will of heaven, the will of God, will be set ablaze by lies. A stream will be diverted, will swell and become a river that will flood peaceful homesteads. Oh, my friends, that sudden dazzling light is suspect. It precedes darkness. Raise your right hands and say after me, O welcome, O being from afar, face of error, innocence of the lie, double of the shadow, O thou so much awaited, so much desired, thou hast been summoned to outwit destiny, thou bringest joy but not happiness, thou erectest a tent in the desert, but it is the dwelling of the wind. Thou art a city of ashes. Thy life will be long, a trial by fire and by patience. Welcome, O thou, the day and the sun. Thou wilt hate evil, but who knows whether thou shalt do good? Welcome, welcome. As I was telling you, the whole family was summoned and gathered in the Haji's household on Wednesday evening. Aunt Aisha ran hither and thither as if demented. The two brothers arrived with wives and children, worried and impatient. Close and distant cousins were also invited. Lala Radhia shut herself up with the Haji's wife. Strict orders were given that they should not be disturbed. Black women in the kitchen prepared the dinner. About midnight, moans were heard, the first labor pains. Old women called upon the Prophet Muhammad. The Haji walked up and down the streets. His brothers held a council of war, whispering to one another in a corner of the reception room. The children slept where they had just eaten. The silence of the night was interrupted only by the cries of pain. Lala Radhia said nothing. She heated the bowls of water and laid out the swaddling clothes. Everyone was asleep except the Haji, the midwife, and the two brothers. At dawn, the call to prayer was heard. A few shadowy figures, like sleepwalkers, said their prayers. The wife was now yelling in pain. As day broke over the household, everything was in great disorder. The black cooks now prepared the breakfast soup, the soup of birth and baptism. The brothers had to go off to work. The children considered themselves on vacation and went on playing in the entrance of the house. About 10 o'clock in the morning of that historic Thursday, while everyone was gathered outside the birth room, Lala Radhia opened the door a fraction and gave a cry of joy, then repeated breathlessly, "It's a man, a man, a man." The Haji arrived in the midst of this gathering like a prince. The children kissed his hand. The women welcomed him with frightened stammering, interspersed with praise and such prayers as, "May God preserve him. The sun has risen. Darkness is banished. Great is God. God is with you." He entered the room, locked the door, and told Lala Rathia to remove the swaddling clothes from the newborn. It was a girl. His wife veiled her face to weep. Holding the baby in his left arm, he pulled his wife's veil away violently and said to her, "Why those tears? I hope you are weeping for joy. Look closely. It's a boy. There's no need to hide your face. You must be proud. After 15 years of marriage, you have at last given me a child, a boy, my first child. Look how handsome he is. Touch his little testicles, his penis. He is a man." Then, turning to the midwife, he told her to take care of the boy and to let no one come near him. He left the room wearing a broad smile. On his face and shoulders could be seen all the virility of the world. At 50, he felt as light-hearted as a young woman. He had already forgotten, or perhaps pretended to, that he had arranged everything. Though he had certainly seen a daughter, he firmly believed it was a boy. Oh, my companions, our story is only at its beginning, and already the vertigo of words dries my tongue. My saliva has run out, my bones are tired. We are all victims of our madness, buried as it is in trenches of desire that must not be named. Let us beware of calling up an angel who has two faces and inhabits our fantasies. Face of the immobile sun, face of the murdering moon. The angel swings from face to face according to the life we dance on an invisible thread. My friends, if you do not see me tomorrow, know that the angel has swung to the side of the precipice and death.